Hails, friends. What's going on? Marty's back. As promised, here's a shot. After doing the meaningful 20-ish meaningful albums in my collection, I figured we would just keep going with this and do the top meaningful albums in death metal. Why not? It was the next logical step. My early on teenage years meaningful albums were all centered around thrash, of course, because that was the time I came up in. But as things started to shift and get faster and more extreme. Oh, and I do want to say, before I get into this, that top 20-ish albums, man, I was thinking back after I published it, and I missed Sadist, I missed so many things. I missed the Speed Kills comps. Holy shit. How can those were super integral in finding me discovering new bands. But anyway, and this is the same as going to happen here. I mean, the death metal scene was huge, and there's some stuff I'm just going to omit just because I don't want this to be a humongously long video, as it's probably going to be anyway. But I'm going to try to go through these a little quicker. But yes, thrash started to get heavier, faster, and kind of when it became its most over bloated and burnt out is when death metal stepped in, and it really laid a deadly blow to the thrash scene, which I think we've all noticed. Now that's coming back, thankfully, which I fucking love. But as you know, thrash remains still one of my favorite genres. But death metal's right in there too, man. I worship death metal, and getting into it, being up here in the northern part of Michigan, I was away from the big cities. I wouldn't hear about the big tours that we're going through until after the fact, and so we felt a little isolated up here. And you know, it was compilations that really got us going on investigating new death metal, but we'll get to that later. One of the first shows I ever went to was in Jackson, Michigan. It was the first ever Michigan Death Fest, and it featured on the bill, headliner was Morbid Angel. Second headliner was Sacrifice, who I was there to see Sacrifice. But other bands on the bill were Deceased, Nuclear Death, Baphomet from New York, which probably should have been in this pile. I've showed that stuff before. It's not going to be in this pile. But while I was there, I had never heard Morbid Angel until this show, but Sacrifice I was there for. So I guess Sacrifice could be the gateway. But I was standing out in line. There was a big ruckus between a Christian group and the death metal people there to see the show. Cops came, kept the peace, but there's a lot of stupid yelling back and forth. But walking up and down the line, someone was selling this demo here. This Morticia's Genetic Blur 1990 Demo 1. And it was like $5, and I said, fuck it, I'll take one. And this has got the 90 demo live on it, and it's got something else on it here. I think it's got 2 demos, actually. Here's the inside. Something they printed off at their local copy store. This has the live set, and then they're from their 89 rehearsal demo, recorded in mono. So this sounds really super raw, but it is really cool. I don't think these guys went on to do much, if anything. Really weird, strange. It's like thrashy autopsy type thing with really weird, twisted riffs. Very much an eye-opening album for me. But of course, you know, after that show, I ended up getting way into death metal and buying some of the stuff that was on, stuff from the bands that were on that venue. Going from here on, the rest of this is just a jumbled. There's no, like, in order or anything. So I'm just going to start with this tape, get this tape out of the way. Early on, this was a big release for me as well. This is Morgue, Eroded Thoughts. This is the tape I bought back in the day at Camelot Music. Listened to it a million times. Ended up finally finding an original CD of it. It's been reissued on vinyl, which I missed out on, which sucks. And CD has been reissued too, I think. But where the fuck were these guys from? I cannot remember where these guys are from. It was on Olympic Records recordings. I think at the time when this came out, I was a little underwhelmed, but I listened to it so many times, and now going back to it now after all these years, it's a very good album, well written and very different from what was coming out, say, out east, you know, with the brutal death stuff. Definitely check out Morgue, Eroded Thoughts. Definitely one I can't believe it even still plays. I've listened to it so many times. This is probably the first death metal album I ever bought, and is to this day my favorite release from this band, and it is Death's Scream Bloody Gore. I bought this CD. I got a CD player for birthday or Christmas or whatever. My first ever CD player when CDs just first came out. And with birthday money on the same day I bought this. I bought King Diamond's Abigail, and I also bought Slayer's Show No Mercy. This, to me, is the epitome of death metal, and it's the best death album just because it's so raw. I mean, the lyrics are fucking stupid, but Zombie Ritual, the riffs are so great. Mutilation, I just love the driving attack of that. Evil Dead, Scream Bloody Gore, holy shit. Just the power in Chuck's vocals are just so twisted and nasty, and Chris Reifert's drumming, of course, on this, but we'll get to him later. Another band from back in the day. This is a very important album to me, just for the fact that the lyrics are smart and the music is so catchy, and this album is so pummeling. That is False by Gorefest. Actually, the very first song on here, The Glorious Dead, is where we got our band name from, so you can tell it's a band that's important to us. These guys have got a handful of albums. Not all of them are good. Their first one, Mind Loss, is great. This is fantastic. Their second to the last one, I can't remember the name of it, is good. And the very, very last one, Rise to Ruin, is fucking great. Almost in league with this one. But this is coming out Nuclear Blast America, and which was Relapse Records. So that's got me buying up things on Relapse and buying up things on Nuclear Blast. But this album is fantastic. If you've never heard it, definitely check it out. Next up, well, let's get to this one right away. I got this just because I saw them live and was fucking mind blown by the live performance, even though you could hardly see them through all the smoke. And but this album, Altars of Madness, Morbid Angel, this is the one I bought 1,000 years ago from a record store in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Vinyl Solution, which we never thought much about it back then, but nowadays that sounds like a pretty sketchy record store name. The guy, Herm, the guy that owned it, closed down Vinyl Solution and opened up another store in Grand Rapids called Vertigo Records, which is fucking great. It's not as good as Vinyl Solution because he carried all the Earache imports. The upstairs was all tapes and CDs, and the downstairs was all vinyl, so you could find all the really cool, rare import vinyl. But, I mean, I don't have to go on too long about this album because it is pretty much classic. Everybody owns it. But that really got me turned around as far as speed and intricate drumming and excellent riffs. Next up, Symphonies of Sickness by Carcass. I think the first Carcass album I heard was Reek of Putrefaction, which I really had to work hard at to like, and to this day I still don't love that record. It's just a train wreck. It sounds like mush. I mean, I guess that's kind of perfect for what they are and were at that point. But this album, Symphonies of Sickness, once you get past the initial, if you're not used to listening to this type of music, when it's just kind of coming out and you're just kind of wading into it, this album sounds like mush as well, until it's like all of a sudden someone turns on a light switch. Oh yeah, there's the songs, and the songs are so fucking good. The riffs are so sick, so twisted, and so powerful, and I fucking absolutely worship the dueling vocals, the higher nasty snarl, and the pitch shifted lows. It doesn't get much better than this album, although their album that came out after this, Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious, another top 5 album for me. I mean, this is a perfect 10. Necroticism's a perfect 10. After that, they started to decline for me, and I had a really hard time choosing between this and Necroticism, but I figured this was the first that hit my ear hole, so we're going to go talking about this one first. Next up, this band was a big deal for me for a long time. This is the first album I heard by this band, and it's one of their best. Unorthodox by Edge of Sanity. I had the cassette of this. I still do, I believe. It has a different track listing. The CD has a different song that is not on the tape, and the tape has a different song that is not on the CD, which is a very interesting and evil way to get people to buy both formats. I don't own the vinyl, the original pressing, so I have no... Was it even pressed originally on vinyl? I have no fucking idea. I know it's been reissued, but I have no idea what the track listing is. But so I kept the tape. Normally what I would do is I bought most of this shit on tape when it first came out because I was a tape guy. I grew up buying tapes. Hated them, but I grew up buying them. And as the years have gone on, I have... I'll replace the tapes with the CD and then get rid of the tapes, which kind of now in hindsight I kind of regret doing. But Dan Swano and the gang, this is a great Swedish death metal band and album. Very minor experiments with pitch vocals on the first song. The rest of it's pretty brutal, but it's so well written, so heavy. Such a great record. Next up, I could not decide which one of these to pick, so I'm showing all three. Sweden was a big deal for, I mean, a lot of us coming up because obviously there's the Stockholm and then there's Gothenburg. I guess I preferred the Stockholm mix. Gothenburg tended to be a little more melodious and focused on melodic death metal. And the Stockholm early beginnings were just fucking full-fisted, punk-induced, power chord-driven, thick, deep, down-tuned death metal. And Grave were one of the best. These first three albums, Into the Grave, You'll Never See, and Soulless, probably for the heavy, nasty stuff, it's a real close tie between these two albums. They're fucking great. But for me, when this album came out, I couldn't stop listening to it. They maintained their knuckle-dragging formula, but they made it more groove-based, which sounds stupid to say. But this is just a super catchy album. I, the other day, was playing guitar and was playing along with this, and just about every song, it almost takes something away from it when you see how fucking easy this album is to play, but it's so well written and so catchy. But definitely check out Grave. All three of these albums are, and the demos, are completely worth your time. Here's another big band for me. I listened to the crap out of this band. Their first three albums are all great. These two EPs combined, I had the tape initially, but I ended up getting the CD. But these two EPs on CD is fucking great. This is Morgoth with The Eternal Fall and Resurrection Absurd. I have Resurrection Absurd, I believe, on vinyl. But this album's rules, and it's mainly because of their singer, this guy right here, Mark Grua. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I actually met him at a Milwaukee Metal Fest. He was for a while the European publicist for Relapse Records. But super nice guy. I was kind of surprised at how short he was. But anyway, this guy's got a monster voice, and this album is just absolutely devastating. These guys did not sound like anybody. This is the vinyl. This is the record I have. Bought it from my buddy Goatworth 1,000 years ago. But this is a great band, great album. Their second album, Cursed, also is good. It's a little more polished, maybe a little more proggy than this early aggressive and nasty material. And then their third album, Odium, was even more so. It's still really good. Mark's vocals got a little more cleaned up. And their fourth album, Feel Sorry for the Fanatic, complete shift. I got a promo of it, and I wanted to hate it really bad because it's kind of an industrial type of... Mark was doing cleaner vocals, but I ended up liking how catchy it was. It really... I don't own an actual full finished copy of it, but I do have the promo of it. But anyway, Morgoth, excellent. Next up, we're going to go to America. that was one thing. I was big into the European death metal stuff, but the Americans, yes, I should have had Cannibal Corpse on here. They were very influential. Yes, I should have had some brutal stuff. Although once we started doing Wormgear Zine back in 95, the whole brutal death metal thing really kind of soured for me because I was so fucking tired of it. So I stuck to the European stuff. Other than these bands, just about everything this band has done has been fucking awesome. And even though this album is incredibly strange sounding, it so has an impenetrable evil that just seeps in. The riffs, you know, have a slight autopsy influence. And of course, Craig Pillard's vocals are absolutely sick. It's Onward to Golgotha by Incantation. This is an original that I bought when it came out. Love this band. John has been a torchbearer for sure. And even though his vocals may not be as completely grotesque as some of the other dudes he's had in the band over the years, he really does a good job. And I think he solved a problem. I think he, assuming the guitar and vocals, really solved a lot of problems for him with lineup. But I love this album, although this is not my favorite album in their collection. The one with Corchado on it. All of a sudden, it's fucking total brain fart. Shouldn't have done the shot, I guess. Oh, it's gonna bother me. Anyway, but when this came out, once I got over the weird, muddy production, couldn't stop listening to it. Diabolical Holocaust? I don't know. The one with Dan Corchado is one of my favorites of theirs. Diabolical Holocaust. Oh, fuck. It's driving me crazy. Why do I have brain farts like this? It drives me nuts. Diabolical Conquest. Oh, my God. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, my kid was coming in. I had to tell him to get the hell out of here. Next up, Immolation, Dawn of Possession. You really can't not like American death metal without hearing these guys. They were within the Incantation formula, but they wrote better songs to me. And this album here is a complete fucking banger. I mean, Into the Everlasting Fire, oh my God, Burial Ground, No Forgiveness Without Bloodshed, Those Left Behind, Dawn of Possession. All these songs are fucking perfect. And definitely check this out. And this is another band where their entire discography, there's some albums that maybe aren't as good as others, but this is fucking awesome. Okay, here's some vinyl for you. Yeah, I was talking to you about the record store in Grand Rapids, Michigan called Vinyl Solution. Down in their basement, they had a bunch of imported stuff. And this was a fucking find. I bought this solely on the hype sticker, which who cares about those things, right? But back then, it kind of meant something. And the album cover, and that is Left Hand Path. Entombed, Swedish death metal, metal gods, formerly nihilist, crushing guitars, mass death. That was all it took for me to snack this up. I bought this the same day as I bought something else I'm going to show you here in a minute. But this is obviously a trend-setting album. You got a thick as a bison fucking guitar tone. Obviously, Stockholm sound. It's got a bit of a punk edge to keep the songs catchy. A lot of nihilist songs on here. Ended up being polished, better sound. Probably Petrov's best vocal performance is on this album. He never really hit this again. But yeah, this is fucking great. You know, obviously I had to buy the CD too because it's got a couple bonus tracks on it, but this band is amazing. And you can't have this band without this band, Dismembered like an ever-flowing stream. I remember buying this after hearing it on a comp that I will show you later. Being really impressed by it, but thinking, oh, these guys are just an Entombed clone because I heard Entombed first. But as these songs sunk in, there was no denying that out of the two bands, Dismembered to me is a better band. These guys just brought a darker attack. a sharper guitar tone, a very similar, you know, obviously the HM2 sound is here, the heavy metal pedal, Boss heavy metal pedal. The HM2 sound is here, but they just had a sharper tone. This is just a fucking crushing album. I mean, the first song, Override the Overture, is worth it for the entire album, just for that song. But thankfully, every song after it is just as good. But Override the Overture, structurally weird. Obviously, a bunch of young dudes writing really killer riffs, just slopping stuff together, but it works so well. This is such a great record. As far as Swedish death metal goes, I would say this is probably the king. This is a close fucking second, but this is obviously, this for me is where it's at when it comes to the Swedish stuff. Still on the Swedish tip, and still kind of all spawning from the Nihilist clique. This was a big band for me back in the day as well. This is Where No Life Dwells, the first album by Unleashed. These guys were even more punk influenced just because they didn't get as complex as Dismember, and I think the Entomb songs were a little bit better. Obviously, Johnny did not have the luxury of taking those old Nihilist songs with him, so he was starting from scratch on this. No Life Dwells, Before the Creation of Time, which was the video for this album, Into Glory Ride, The Dark One, holy shit. This is a reissue that came out a few years ago. Fucking great record. I actually bought this record from Wyatt for a really good price. I don't know why he got rid of it, but, you know, whatever. I had to make more room for his Go to War X stuff, I guess. But this is a great record, and I had it on cassette, got rid of it for the CD, and now I've got the vinyl of it as well. Right along the same time of Death, I got into this band, and this band is another huge influence for me as far as musically, and I think it is for a lot of people that they want to play really sick, dirty death metal, and that is obviously Autopsy, Severed Survival. This is a Brazilian pressing, I believe. Mushroom Records. Yep. Distributed in Brazil by Mushroom Records. So this is a Brazilian, Peaceville/Brazilian pressing, Mushroom Records. I have the cassette. I had the cassette of this that I wore out. Had the different cover with the guy Hellraiser style getting ripped apart. Upgraded it to a CD that had this cover on it. I always wanted the CD with the real cover, and found this somewhere. Had to have it. But this is great, and the best thing about this is, yeah, it's got this poor guy on here, Ken Sorvari on bass, but he didn't play bass on this. Steve DiGorgio from Sadis and Death played bass on this. You can tell the fretless or the Rickenbacker tone, I don't know, but Steve DiGorgio is cutting out of the fucking the mix on this stuff. So good. His clean, really intricate bass work and the slow, sluggish, doomy stoner riffs on this fucking record. And then, you know, Chris Reifert, fucking, the way he puke sings is just absolutely sick. No one sounds like him. This band is stellar. Can't recommend that stuff enough. Moving on. I'm getting low to the end here. I tried to keep it down, like I said. Next up is Amorphous, the Corellian Isthmus. This album was a big deal for me. I love this record. Really is a perfect record. I mean, as far as down, despondent sounding death metal, but melodic, well written. This album's fucking great. And, you know, Tales from the Thousand Lakes is just as good. It had that despondent sound, but they injected the really cheesy Casio keyboards, and their songs got a little more lighthearted, I think. I still love that album, but this album is dense. It's well written. It's fucking stunning from beginning to end. Warrior's Trail, Gathering, The Pilgrimage, Vulgar Necrolatry. This has got the demo stuff on there from The Privilege of Evil, which is awesome as well. I mean, basically this band was Abhorrence, and they turned into Amorphous. They probably changed some members. I don't remember the whole fucking lineage of this band, but this is a great, great, great album. If you do not have this album, definitely this is an essential purchase. And out of all the albums I could have picked, this is probably the one that I still listen to this one so much. This album is so groundbreaking and so awesome, and it is probably the one that sounds the least like the rest of their catalog, which is fine. But I still love this record, and I had to show it, and it is Sinister's Cross the Styx. This is the product of down-tuned, brutal death metal mixed with thrashy, technical riffs. Probably could. Yeah, I'm gonna take this out of this. It's worth it. This band was fucking great. Mike's vocals were super. He crammed a lot of lyrics into those really technical fucking verses. Corridors to the Abyss. Compulsory Resignation. Holy shit. Perennial Mourning. This fucking album is a perfect 10 out of 10 record for me. Love the cover. I love the songs. I love the weird lo-fi-ish production. Like I said, it kind of, the dry production kind of highlights the thrashiness of the riffs on this album. I mean, everybody, whenever I talk to people, they mention Diabolical Summoning, and yeah, that album's great, but that album to me strikes as more of a US-inspired death metal attack. Cross the Styx was more of its own thing, which I greatly appreciate, and definitely my favorite Sinister album in their catalog. I do like Diabolical Summoning. I love Afterburner. Even their new shit is fucking good. I mean, even though that band is completely... I mean, Odd, I believe, is the last dude in that band was there since the beginning. Was he on this album? Yeah, Odd. He's been here since the beginning. He was a drummer. Now he's a vocalist. But, you know, Sinister's still churning out good shit, and they're still great. And lastly, I had to show a couple comps to keep it in spirit of the last one. This was a big comp for me. In the Eyes of Death, we're actually listing this in the background if you can hear it at all. This is the Century Media comp. Turned me on to Unleashed, Asphyx. Oh my god, I forgot to grab Asphyx, the Rack. Should have grabbed that one. Asphyx, the Rack definitely should have been on this list. I listed that thing. Definitely one of the heaviest, most blistering death metal albums around is The Rack by Asphyx. Tiamat, Morgoth was on here. Grave. That was my first introduction to all those bands, was via this comp. Very important. This is a huge comp. I had it on tape. I ended up finding this used somewhere for like $5, but Death is Just the Beginning 2. I don't even own the first one, so I totally missed out on that, but this gave me Pungent Stench, Monstrosity, Sinister, Brutality, who are fucking amazing, Afflicted, Disharmonic Orchestra, I love that stuff, Deceased, Gorefest, Hypocrisy, Fetish 69, which is a band that's really weird and punky and noise rock. I've got their CD and 7-inch by those guys. I always thought they were really underrated. Weird, but underrated. And Amorphous, Winter. Very essential comp in my evolution. There's another big one. Although this has got some weird industrial shit on it. I mean, you can't deny Volume 4 by Peaceville, Anathema, My Dying Bride, Autopsy, Dark Throne, Blaze in the Northern Sky, Paradise Lost, Vital Remains, At the Gates, Kingdom Gone. This really perked up my ear a little bit to hearing more of a Doom, more of a European Doom sound, more of an English feel. Wasn't really huge on the like GGFH. Was never a big fan of that stuff, but this is cool. And this comp was probably one of the biggest, and I bought this the same day I bought Entombed's Left Hand Path at the same record store, Vinyl Solution. It's the Grind Crusher comp, and as you will notice from the track listing, the vinyl is greatly reduced than the cassette release and the CD release was of this. The cassette, which I also had probably triple the track listing. The CD did as well. But this gave me Morbid Angel, Repulsion. First time I heard Repulsion. Carcass, which is a different version of Exhumed to Consume. I don't know if that came off of a demo or what. I don't have any of the Carcass demos. Godflesh, my first touch with Godflesh. Napalm Death. Bolt Thrower, which, oh, how could I not have grabbed for Victory? But I didn't. Like I said, I had to draw a line somewhere. For Victory came later, and honestly, I really loved Bolt Thrower all along. But it wasn't until For Victory where that was like the perfect culmination of everything they had done. That riff, that album is a riff powerhouse of an album. But yep, this is an important one too. And I just gotta say, these are fun. And all you folks out there, you know, a lot of you have been making videos in response to my last one. I'm gonna challenge you again. Let's see your death metal records. And probably this week, towards the end of the week, I'll get into the black metal stack too, which is going to be another one that's not going to be anything necessarily rare, but you know, it's all stuff that meant something to me, and it's all been very influential to my musical development. But I just want to thank you all again for watching. It's been really cool. The subscriptions are growing, and people are getting a little more involved in the comments, which is, you know, in this time when we're all sitting around with our finger in our asses, wondering what we're going to do other than drink. It's been kind of nice to interact. I do have some work to do this week, so I should probably get on that. But I just want to keep this ball rolling, try to entertain you guys. If you're a wallflower and you've been watching my channels without subscribing, go ahead and subscribe, man. It won't kill you. We'll give you announcements when I got new shit coming out. But I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Be safe.